Hello everyone, welcome to the Lungleng Show. Today let's talk about the relationship between India and Canada. We have known and we have heard that the relationship between India and Canada has hit rock bottom. And there are many reasons why this has happened. We have seen Indian diplomats being kicked out and Canadian diplomats being kicked out from India and vice versa. And when you look at the relationship between India and Canada, you have never seen this level hitting a new level, new low when it comes to the diplomatic relationship between these two countries. This all began because one Sikh in Canada by the name Hardeep Singh Nijjar was assassinated by two gunmen in Canada. Now the Canada government is blaming that it was done by Indian agents. So they're saying that it's all because Indian government involved in killing Canadian citizens, her own citizens in the soil of Canada. And that is totally against the territorial sovereignty of a country like Canada. While India has been refuting to that, saying that we didn't do that. Show us the proof. That's what has been going on. So it's very interesting that I think this is the first ever worst diplomatic relationship between India and Canada that has ever happened. Of course, in the past, there has been some strains as well when it comes to the diplomatic relationship, but it has never hit this low in the past. There has never been a case where Indian diplomats will be kicked off from Canada, and there has never been a case where the Canadian diplomats were kicked out from the Indian soil. But this time it has happened. Let's look at it, why it happened. So after he got assassinated, there is a funeral that went on. I'll show you a short clip of the funeral of Hardeep Singh Nijjar in Canada. Let's take a look at this.
Hundreds of community members and supporters of the Khalistan movement came together, all to commemorate the life of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. He was the president of the Guru Nanak Gurdwara in Surrey. Supporters remember him as peaceful, humble, and loved in the community. Sikhs from across the country traveled to Surrey to pay their respects.
All of us, we came from Edmonton, and people came from all over the Canada, US, everybody represent here.
So we have seen the video. He was known as someone who is humble and who was peaceful. He didn't vouch or he didn't propagate any sort of violence. That's what the people of Canada are saying. However, there is a history behind why India and Canada tend to have bad relationship in the past. It's all because there are many Sikhs who are pro-Khalistan movement. So Khalistan is it's an aspired homeland for the Sikhs. So they want to be separated from the country of India. So India as a country is totally objecting to that every time that comes up. So Prime Minister Modi and the government of India felt very uncomfortable knowing the fact that there were pro-Khalistan people, pro-Khalistan Sikhs out there in Canada as Canadian citizens. Since he got assassinated, the government of Canada was very unhappy with it because it is an interference in the soil of Canada. And if there is anything that is going on, anything that is going wrong in Canada, they felt that it should be informed to them diplomatically, not the Indian agents coming and killing her own citizens in the soil of Canada. However, if you look at the detail, the foreign minister of India, Dr. Jaishankar, had refuted, saying that India has no hands in that. So let's see what he has to say about it.
This is not the government of India's policy. Two, we told the Canadians saying that, look, if you have something specific, if you have something relevant, let us know. We are open to looking at it.
He also dug in, repeating India's claim Canada is sheltering terrorists and criminals and is too lax on Sikh separatists.
We have actually been badgering the Canadians. We have given them a lot of information.
Canadian government could not also produce any sort of proof that it was Indian agents who did the killing, who did the assassination. So these debates and this dilemma has been going on for quite some time. But Justin Trudeau thought that it is all done by India. So without necessarily producing the fact or proof, he just believed, and the government of Canada believed that it was done by India because of the past record of the Indian government's, let's say, opposition towards the Khalistan movement. So drawing from there, the government of Canada thought that it's all done by Indian agents. So let's look at it. Then who was this guy, Hardeep Singh Nijjar? When you look at his life, like I said, he came from Punjab and he went to Canada in 1997. And he got married there and had 2 sons. And people of Canada know him as someone who is humble and who is peaceful and never propagated any words of violence. That's what the people of Canada says. However, he was being labeled as individual terrorist by India. So under the UAPA Act, which is an act that to prevent terrorist activities in India. So as per that law, the Ministry of Home Affairs has labeled him as an individual terrorist that needs to be targeted. So since he has been labeled as terrorist under UAPA, he has many charges in India. So he has been also accused for 2007 cinema bombing in Punjab. So there was a bombing in Punjab in a cinema hall in 2007 where around 40 people got killed. So India government accuses him of being the one behind that bombing. And also there was a politician from Punjab known as Rulda Singh. He got assassinated in 2009. And Indian government is charging against Hardeep Singh Nijjar as the man behind doing all of that. But Hardeep Singh Nijjar denied all of that accusations. And he has never been charged as guilty in the court yet. However, this is the accusation made by the Home Minister of Home Affairs so far. Now, the relationship between India and Canada has become a tit for tat. Meaning, Justin Trudeau's claimed that Canadian police were investigating allegations against Indian agents. So they said that they will provide the fact very soon because Hardeep Singh was killed in 2023, last year, in the month of June. And when you look at Canada, Canada has faced sharp criticism from India for failing to oppose the pro-Khalistan movement within the borders of Canada. So that has become a problem for India, and India is very uncomfortable with that. And again, Justin Trudeau says, there are many supporters of course, Khalistan movement in Canada, but they do not represent the Sikh community. That's what he claims. And there are supporters of Modi government in Canada, but they do not represent a Hindu Canadians as a whole. This is his argument. And he further says that no country, particularly not a democracy that upholds the rule of law, can accept this fundamental violation of its sovereignty. Meaning, no country which has a rule of law will accept a foreign country agents coming and killing our own citizens. This is his accusation towards India. Now, the point of contention here is that what India views and what India perceives as a dangerous threat, which is Hardeep Singh, India saw him and India sees him as a dangerous threat, is seen by Canada as a mere activism for a movement he believes in, and it is also a matter of dissent which is protected by freedom of speech in Canada. So now both sides are not willing to make concessions on this matter. So Justin Trudeau and Canada government think that he is protected by the law of Canada, which is it allows freedom of speech in whatever activism and whatever movement he believes in. He has the right to say it. He has the right to advocate for it. This is what Justin Trudeau is saying. But India says that he's a terrorist and we don't want Canada to shelter him. He has charges. He needs to be, if possible, extradited to India to be charged. But now, being a citizen of Canada, Hardeep Singh could not be extradited because Canada is a sovereign country. Now, this is the argument between India and Canada. Here, I will play you one more video of Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, arguing and telling that he had a talk with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and this is what he said to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Take a look.
It culminated with a conversation I had with Prime Minister Modi on after the end of the last session at the G20 in Delhi, where I sat down and shared that we knew that they were involved and expressed a real concern around it. He responded with the usual response from him, which is that we have people who are outspoken against the Indian government living in Canada that he would like to see arrested. And I tried to explain that freedom of speech and freedom of people who come to our country to be Canadians to criticize governments overseas is, or indeed to criticize the Canadian government, is a fundamental freedom of Canada.
So this is what happens. Justin Trudeau is arguing that our citizens cannot be arrested by a foreign country. We have the right to protect our own territorial, sovereignty, and that's why we cannot just toe the line of India, of what India says, what India demands, because he's our citizen. If there's anything wrong, we are ready to cooperate. That's what he says. I mean, when you look at both sides have a genuine way of genuine way of understanding their each problem, because India thinks that Mr. Hardeep Singh Nijjar is a terrorist. And if he's a terrorist, then yes, India is concerned about it. But in the case of Canada, since Hardeep was just a peaceful and humble man who believes in the Khalistan movement and who propagates and advocates the rights of the Sikh people to have separate own homeland in India, which is the Khalistan state. So that is just his freedom of speech and his rights to believe and advocate what he really believes in. Right? So this is the argument, this is dilemma. Now this is the conflict between the two countries. This has to be resolved through out-of-the-box diplomatic conversation and dialogue between the two countries. Otherwise, things can get stagnated and it can have a lot of negative repercussions on the citizens of both the countries. Now the question is, why is Justin Trudeau so protective of this Hardeep Singh Nijjar, who just got assassinated last year? Well, the Ministry of External Affairs is, accusing Canada that there is a political agenda on the part of Trudeau government, Canadian government, which is centered around vote bank politics. There are about 770,000 Sikh people in Canada, so almost 1 million Sikh in Canada. So that has maybe become a huge vote bank politics, according to the Ministry of External Affairs. And the Sikh people exert actually considerable influence in Canadian politics, of course. And because when you look at Justin Trudeau, he was he was so proud in saying in 2016 that while Prime Minister Narendra Modi does not have even one Sikh person, a politician, as one of the cabinet members, we have 4 Sikh people in our cabinet. This is what Justin Trudeau said in 2016. That shows that when he made that comparison, there was a rift already between these two countries. It's just that it did not just break out. But when things got out of control, now we can see that it just broke out. And the relationship has just hit the rock bottom nowadays. Sikh people occupy at least 15 seats in the House of Commons, which is like the Lok Sabha in the case of Canada, and which make up to 4% in the total members of the House of Commons, which is the lawmaking body. And actually, they make up 4%, but when you look at the actual population, Sikh people make up only about 2% in Canada. So that means they wield strong political power, strong political influence in Canada. So maybe, according to the accusation of the Minister of External Affairs, Sikh people have political influence. That's why Justin Trudeau or government of Canada has to be very protective about them. This is just a speculation according to the accusation made by the Ministry of External Affairs. May be true or may not be true. But the Justin's argument, like we have seen, is we have territorial sovereignty, so no other country agents can come and kill our own citizens. He has the right to right to free speech, and he can express whatever he believes in, as long as he doesn't commit violence. This is what Canadian government is saying. So the last question is, what can happen between India and Canada if this conflict, escalates even more? if this conflict gets escalated even more, or if this goes out of control, what can happen worse? What worse can happen to these two countries? I think no physical war can happen, of course, because we're about 11,000 kilometers away from each other. However, negative repercussions have just started to happen. The first that we have seen is expelling of the diplomats from each other, like against each other's diplomats from both sides have already happened. And it's going to happen even more if things don't improve. And the diaspora of both the countries, especially for India in Canada, will be strongly affected because there are about a million of people, more than a million people in Canada, Indian origin. So they can be really, really affected. And they're working as professionals in the IT sector, agriculture sector, and so on. And there are thousands of students going to Canada every year for further studies in education and academic and universities. So this will affect a lot of Indian people as well. And one very important thing that can come as a very negative repercussion for India can be Canada has been one of the strongest supporters for India's bid to become a permanent member in the United Security Council, while China has been blocking that proposal, that bidding. But Canada has been supporting India to become one of the permanent members in the UN Security Council. So now that this relationship, the rift between Canada and India has happened, Canada may stop supporting India for seeking to become a permanent member in the United Security Council. That's one diplomatic negative repercussion that can happen. And Canada also recognizes India as the leader in the subcontinent region. So that may also go away because there's high chance that Canada might start building diplomatic relationship with Sri Lanka and Pakistan and so on. Probably Canada will look to China to build more relationship or having more diplomatic ties rather than India if this conflict gets escalated even more in the future. So these are the few things that I would like to highlight, and this is still currently going on, and let's observe and see what happens. Thanks for watching.